You finally get a free weekend. You arrive at the lake early on a Saturday morning, the water looks beautiful, and you are full of confidence. You tie on your absolute favorite, most expensive lure, step up to the edge of the bank, and you start casting. And you cast. And you cast. 4 hours go by, your shoulder is starting to ache, and you haven't had a single bite. Doubt starts to creep into your mind. You open your tackle box and start frantically changing lures every 5 minutes. You switch from a green worm to a black worm. You swap the crankbait for a spinnerbait. You start to think that maybe you just aren't good at this, or maybe the fish simply aren't biting today. But I want you to stop and take a deep breath. The problem is not your lure. The problem is not the color of your bait. And the problem is certainly not your skill level. The ugly truth is that you are likely spending your entire morning fishing in an empty swimming pool. In aquatic biology, there is a fundamental law known as the 90-10 rule. It states that 90% of the fish in any given body of water live in only 10% of the water. That means the other 90% of the lake is essentially a sterile, empty desert. If you don't know how to read the water, you are just blindly throwing your lure into the desert, hoping for a miracle. Today, we are going to change how you look at a lake forever. I am going to teach you how to put down your rod, observe nature, and find that productive 10% in less than 5 minutes using the rule of the 3 C's. Before we unlock the map to the lake, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and tap the like icon so we can keep bringing you the honest, stress-free fishing advice that actually helps you catch fish. Let's get started. To become a consistently successful angler, you have to fundamentally change your mindset. Humans are terrestrial creatures. When we stand on the bank and look out at a lake, we see a beautiful, flat mirror reflecting the sky. We assume that underneath that flat surface, the fish are just swimming around randomly, evenly distributed like people walking through a park. But fish, especially apex predators like the largemouth bass, do not see a park. They see a battlefield. They are opportunistic, and quite frankly, they are incredibly lazy. A big predator is not going to swim miles across open, empty water just to hunt. They want to hide, conserve their energy, and let the food come to them. To find them, you just need to look for the 3 C's: cover, current, and contour. Let's start with the first C, cover. This is the physical structure in the water. You have to remember a basic biological fact about fish: they do not have eyelids. When the sun is high and bright, it physically hurts their eyes. Furthermore, a fish in open water is completely vulnerable to birds of prey from above and larger fish from below. They crave a roof over their heads. When you arrive at a new lake, ignore the massive expanses of open water. Instead, look for thick, heavy vegetation, dense lily pads, wooden boat docks, and massive fallen oak trees laying in the water. Look for the dark shadows cast by overhanging branches along the bank. Bass will bury themselves in this cover to hide from the sun and ambush their prey. Here is a golden rule from an old fisherman. If you aren't occasionally getting your lure snagged on a branch or wrapped in the weeds, you are fishing in the wrong spot. You have to be willing to throw your bait into the nasty, thick stuff where the giants actually live. The second C you need to find is current. When most beginners arrive at a lake and feel a heavy wind blowing, they get frustrated. The wind puts a bow in their line, makes casting difficult, and ruins the peaceful reflection on the water. But veteran anglers absolutely love the wind. Wind is the great activator of the food chain. When a strong breeze blows across a lake, it physically pushes microscopic plankton toward one specific side of the water. Where the plankton goes, the tiny baitfish follow. And where the baitfish go, the massive predators are right behind them, ready for a feast. Do not hide from the wind. Look at the trees. See which way the breeze is blowing, and find the wind-blown bank, the shoreline where the waves are actively crashing against the rocks or the mud. The water there will be murky, choppy, and chaotic. It might be harder to cast, but that entire shoreline is an all-you-can-eat buffet. and the fish are stacked up right at your feet, waiting for a meal. The third and final C is contour. This refers to the shape of the lake bottom and the sudden changes in depth. Big fish are incredibly cautious. They rarely feel comfortable moving into shallow water to feed unless they have an immediate escape route. They want a deep, dark hole right next to them so they can vanish if danger approaches. You do not need a $1,000 sonar graph on a boat to find these depth changes. You just need to look at the dry land. The shape of the bank above the water usually dictates the shape of the bottom below the water. If you see a flat, sandy beach that slowly tapers into the water, that slow taper probably continues for 100 yards. That is a dead zone. But if you look down the shoreline and see a steep, rocky cliff or a sharp dirt bank dropping directly into the water, you have found the jackpot. That steep physical drop continues underwater, creating what we call a drop-off. Bass will use these deep vertical walls like an underwater highway, slowly cruising up and down the edge, trapping baitfish against the wall. The true magic of fishing happens when you slow down and start putting the puzzle pieces together. Finding one of the 3 C's is good, but finding 2 or 3 of them in the exact same spot, that is how you catch the fish of a lifetime. If you walk along the bank and you find a massive fallen tree, which is cover, laying on a steep rocky drop-off, which is contour, and the wind is blowing directly into it, which is current, you need to stop walking. You have found the 10% of the lake holding 90% of the fish. The fishing industry spends millions of dollars trying to convince you that success comes from buying a magic lure in a secret color. They want you focused on your shopping cart, not on the environment. But nature has already given you the map. The next time you get a free Saturday and you head down to the water, I want you to try something different. Leave your fishing rod in the truck for the first 5 minutes. Walk down to the bank, put your hands in your pockets, and just look. Read the wind, find the cover, and look for the depth changes. Once you find the life, then you can go grab your gear. I want to hear from you. When you are out on the water, what is your absolute favorite type of structure to fish? Are you someone who loves pulling fish out of heavy grass? Or do you prefer bouncing a jig off deep rocks? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Take your time out there and tight lines.